There's a version of this video where I tell you Gothic 1 Remake is the most important RPG of 2026, and honestly, that version might be true. But before we get into all of that, let me tell you something that kind of blew my mind when I first heard it. The original Gothic game came out in 2001. It was scrappy, brutal, unforgiving RPG from a small German studio. No hand-holding, no quest mark, no fast travel. The game basically threw you into a prison colony and said good luck and don't die. Most people have never heard of it. The ones who played it are obsessed and are truly obsessed for over 2 decades. Now here we are in 2026, Alkimia Interactive, a Spanish studio funneled by THQ Nordic, has taken that 25-year-old cult classic and rebuilt it from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5. Every texture, every character, every single system, and the question everybody is asking right now is, did they actually get it right? I spent some serious time with the game, and today we're going to talk about all of it. The combat, the world, the story, the performance on PC, and whether this is actually worth your money. This is Gothic 1 Remake, so let's get into it. Why this game exists and why it doesn't matter. Before we get into the gameplay, I want to spend just a minute on what makes this whole project interesting, because I think the context matter a lot here. The original Gotham was released in 2001 by Piranha Bytes. It was ambitious in the way that almost felt reckless for its time. While most RPGs were pointing you towards waypoints, holding your hand through every little quest, Gothic dropped you right into the deep and trusting you to figure it out on your own. There's no maps unless you bought one, no objective markers, NPC schedules ran whether you were there or not, a world that generally reacted to what you did. It wasn't the most polished game by far. The controls were notoriously awkward, it had all kind of rough edges, but it had vision to it, and it committed to that vision completely. For a very specific kind of RPG player, the kind who generally loves feeling like a nobody clawing their way up from nothing, it became something close to a perfect game. The remake inherits all of that DNA. Alkimia has been perfectly clear that this isn't a reimagining, it's not a reinterpretation. They're not taking the general concept and building something new around it. This is a faithful reconstruction of Gothic Gotham 1. Same world, same quest, and same philosophy, just rebuilt for 2026. The word faithful gets thrown around a lot with remakes, but from what I've played, it actually applies here. This feels like Gothic, it looks like Gothic, and the spirit of the game is still intact. And I think that's exactly what makes it interesting right now, because in a year full of games that are bigger, smoother, and more accessible than ever, Gotham 1 Remake is deliberately, stubbornly, unapologetic, the opposite of all of that. And we should talk about whether this is a good thing. So let's start with the world. The kingdom of Martana is at war with an orc horde. King Robar II needs massive quantities of magical ore to forge weapons strong enough to push back the invasion, so he does what any desperate king would do. He rounds up every convict in the land and dumps them in a mining colony called the Valley of Mines, deep in the hills of Corinus. To make sure nobody escapes, he has his best mages construct a magical barrier around the entire valley, so nobody can get out except something goes wrong during the ritual. The barrier doesn't just seal the valley, it traps the mages who casted it inside with the prisoners. And then the prisoners figure out very quickly that the guards are stuck in there too, with no reinforcements coming. Within hours, the prisoners revolt, they kill the guards, and they take over the entire colony. And now the king, the most powerful ruler in the land, has to negotiate with a bunch of convicted criminals because they're the only ones who can mine his ore. And now there's no army in the world that can march through a one-way magic barrier. That's your setting, and that's what you're walking into. It is generally one of the most creative setups in RPG history. There's something almost cinematic about it. This collapsed society that has been forced to self-organize under extreme conditions. The valley has 3 factions. The old camp is the largest and most powerful. They essentially built the mob structure and running an extortion racket, controlling the ore trade, and keeping order through fear and muscle. The new camp is a breakaway group that refuses to play ball with the old camp's leadership. They're trying to brew a magical potion that could potentially destroy the barrier and free everyone, which sounds great in theory, but requires its own complicated politics and practice. And then there's the Swamp Camp, which is just a cult, a generally strange and generally unsettling religious commune that worships a sleeping god called Sleeper. They're dealing with narcotics, they're keeping secrets, and they believe they found a path to freedom that the other camps can't even fathom. What makes the world work is that none of these factions are simply good or evil. They're just people trying to survive in an impossible situation, and each one of them has their compromises that will horrify the others. The valley doesn't judge them, it just shows you how they live. Now in 2026, Alkimia has rebuilt this world with Unreal Engine 5, and I want to be direct about this. It looks phenomenal. The environmental design is probably the strongest path in this remake on pure technical level. The valley feels dense and layered with rocky hillsides, covering real vegetation, underground mine shafts lit by the flank glow of magical ore, the swamp area draped in this thick visual haze that makes it feel generally menacing. Over 600 unique NPC faces populate the colony, which sounds like a marketing bullet point until you actually walk through the old camp and realize nobody looks like a clone of anybody else. The world is also compacted in a way that I want to flag as intentional and actually smart. This isn't an open world modern sense. It's not Skyrim. It's not Elden Ring. The valley is not enormous, but it's incredibly dense. Every corner has something new. A hidden cave, buried chest, a creature that will absolutely destroy you if you're not careful. The game rewards exploration in a deep, direct, tactical way, in a way a lot of modern open worlds kind of have lost. When you find something in Gothic, it feels like you found it because you actually did. Nobody marked it on the map. Nobody told you where to go. There's no mini map in this game. I want to say that up front because it's a major part of how exploration feels. You can buy maps from certain vendors that give you a basic overview of the valley layout, but it doesn't track your position and it doesn't update in real time, and it doesn't mark quest objectives. You navigate by landmarks, memory, and asking NPCs and actually paying attention to what they say. This will feel extremely refreshing to some players and generally frustrating to others, and I'll get back to that when we talk about who this game is for. Let's talk about the combat and how this game actually plays, because this is where things are interesting. Gothic combat has always been a dividing line. The original system was famously obtuse. Learning felt like learning a completely foreign language. Alkimia has reworked it significantly for the remake, and what they've built is something generally unique. It's not unique like Souls-likes. I want to push back on that comparison because I've seen it a lot, and honestly, it's not a fair comparison. I don't think it's really accurate. It's not Dark Souls. The encounters don't quite require the same precise timing mastery. The philosophy in the games are completely different. Gothic combat rewards knowledge more than reflexes. Learning what enemies do, understanding which weapons work against which enemy types. The game has built a real split between edge damage and blunt damage, and it matters. You can't just pick up a sword and hack away at a stone golem. You need a blunt weapon, a mace, something that can actually make that damage to that type of enemy. Similarly, different weapon categories, long swords, axes, maces, all have completely different combo chains, different speeds, and different damage profiles. The axe does hit harder, but if you're committed to a slower swing, a sword is faster but does less damage per hit. These aren't just cosmetic differences, they change how fights feel and how you approach them. Combo chaining is one of the new additions in the remake, and it's executed pretty well. When you land a hit, the blade briefly glows to signal your next attack window. Hit the button at the right moment and you chain into the next move. Miss the window and your combat breaks. It's simple enough not to overwhelm you, but it gives fights enough rhythm that they don't feel completely random. The complexities come from enemy behavior. Enemies can interrupt your combos, stagger you, and surround you. Some can dodge, and some have attacks that you need to specifically look out for. The ranged combat has also been completely reworked. In the original, archery was largely skill-based on the stat side. Your character's skill level determined your accuracy. In the remake, it's player-controlled. You aim, you draw, you release, and how well you land your shots is completely on you. Crossbows hit harder but take real time to reload. The game actually models the reload action, which adds a high risk reward dynamic to what works well. Early on, you won't have access to a trainer who can teach you two-handed weapons, so expect to spend a lot of time with whatever sword or axe you can get your hands on from the start. One of the most impactful new addition is the acrobatic skills. Once you buy it from a trainer, it unlocks dodge rolling. You can now get out of the way of incoming attacks rather than just eating them. Before you have this skill, especially in early hours, you're gonna have to take a lot of hits. Enemies are gonna be unforgiving. The starting area have creatures that can one-tap you if you're not careful, and larger wildlife in the valley can kill you in a couple of swings, even later in the game if you're unprepared. The game is pretty honest about that. When something is out of your league, it is visually out of your league. It's not gonna be hard to notice. That wolf that stared at you for 2 seconds before ripping your health bar in half is a warning. Come back later and come back stronger. Climbing and swimming systems are new and they matter. Finding an NPC in the swamp camp will teach you to scale certain marked surfaces in the world, and it'll open up new sections on the map to you in a way that the original couldn't do. Diving underwater reveals hidden caves and treasures that completely miss out on the surface level playthrough. These systems aren't that deep, they are movement tools, they're not gameplay pillars, but they are integrated to a world that feels natural and more quality of life. Magic is available earlier than you might expect. There's a fire mage in the old camp who'll give you access to the magical rune, either a healing rune or a fireball, before you even join the faction. If you complete this quest, the fireball rune is not a toy. It makes your early game a little more manageable if you track them down. Mana capacity is limited at first, and you can expand it through trainers, particularly in the swamp camp, but even a small magic option can change how you approach difficult situations. Character progression works through a learning point system. You earn points through experience and spend them through specific MP trainers who are scattered throughout the 3 camps. These trainers are the only way to improve your skills. No menus, no skill trees that you can browse. You have to find the right person, pay their price, and learn from them directly. This ties character growth directly into the world and the faction system, which I think is a generally smart design. The remake includes a glossary that logs which trainer and which camp teaches which skills, which is a welcome quality of life addition that makes the system far less difficult than the 2001 version. One last thing worth mentioning on the gameplay side, the scavenger mount. Gothic has always had this problem with the lack of backtracking between camps. Before you unlock teleportation stones later in the game, the remake adds a rideable scavenger. Think a large raptor-like creature that you can unlock early through a small quest near the wilderness huts. It does not completely eliminate backtracking entirely, but it does make traveling way less punishing before you have fast travel options. It's a charming addition that fits the world completely naturally. I'm going to give lockpicking its own section because the community is generally split on it and you should know what you're walking into. The original Gotham had a simple sequence based on lockpicking. You figured out the right order of left, right inputs and the locked open. The remake replaces it with a puzzle-based minigame where you have to figure out how mechanical components interact with each other and work them in the right order to disengage the lock. Without any lockpicking skill invested, the minigame is brutal. You have very few attempts before your lockpick break, and some of the early mandatory locks are generally tricky to figure out code. After investing even a single skill point in lockpicking, the system becomes significantly more approachable. Skill level reduces the number of interaction components and gives you more margin for error. My honest take, don't try to brute force lock chests before you train lockpicking at least once. Save the investment and make it a priority early on because the puzzle underneath the frustration is actually pretty clever once you're not fighting it on the hardest difficulty possible. My verdict, Gothic 1 Remake is a confident, well-executed reconstruction of one of the most influential games ever made. Alkimia Interactive clearly understood the assignment to preserve the vision, modernize the presentation, and don't apologize for any of it. It's not a perfect game. The early game onboarding is rougher than it needs to be. PS5 Performance is a legitimate concern and just dog water, and some of the new mechanical additions are better balanced than others, but none of that changes what this fundamentally is. A rare modern RPG that treats you like an intelligent adult and gives you a fully realized world to explore and makes character growth feel generally earned. From what I've spent with this game, the core of what made Gothic special has survived intact. The Valley of the Mind feels alive and as dangerous as weirdly compelling as it ever has been. And in a year where a lot of the biggest RPGs are all about scale and spectacle and accessibility, there's something generally refreshing about a game that just puts you in the deep end and trusts you to swim. Is it worth $50? For the right kind of player, hell yeah. Comfortably, for someone who's on the fence, maybe wait for a sale or just test the waters with the original game. That's it for this Gothic 1 Remake review. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know if you're a veteran coming into this game or is this your first time in the Valley? If you're new here and you enjoyed this type of gaming content, subscribe and stick around. New videos are coming up consistently. And if you want to watch me actually play on live, come hang out with me on Twitch. Link is in the bio and in the description. But until next time, stay safe, stay smart, stay out of minds, and I'll catch you in the next one.